But are you looking through a veil of separation? Where are you looking from becomes extremely important. You know, if you are separate, an individualized sense of self only,
Yes.
you're going to see nothing but separation.
And suffering.
Me and my country versus you and your country.
Yeah.
And then we have the conflict of war. We can step out of all of that. Not in the future.
No.
It's available now. But it's not fixing the world, you see. We leave the world alone. We leave the individual life story alone. And we discover who we are, and it effortlessly unfolds. So I see it as really a time of miracles, a new dawn, as I refer to it in the book. It isn't really new because it's been forever here. And we have only to become conscious of it. And it's within us.
And then you met Sundance.
Yes. Yes. And that was beautiful. To meet someone as beloved who had been through awakening. And so finally this had a name.
So you could talk with, you could share with him.
Right.
Your experience.
And an opportunity of wise love and living that in a day-to-day ordinary, which becomes quite extraordinary, you know, every moment of life. And as it turned out, we ended up sharing this and teaching together. It's beautiful.
Yes. It's interesting when you called it wise love.
Yes. It's not at all like the relative love that turns to hate in an instant.
Yes, yes. So how does wise love look like?
It has no
in
form.
Daily life.
It has no form. It arises from this intelligence that you are. You are this wise love. And when you consider that you have, I don't know about you, but Katie, I was looking for it everywhere.
Yes.
And you are this. And it flows from within. It can't be found in the world of form. We bring it into the world of form, which isn't ultimately quite true either. There's always the paradox. But if we will just, like you said, stop and be still and watch what arises. You know, first we're going to see all kinds of thoughts, and thoughts can be quite mad.
Yeah. It is a madhouse.
And if you miss the thoughts, which in the beginning can be quite difficult, to even, because you're so identified with the thought that you're not even aware that you're thinking compulsively almost all of the time. Not you, but people in general. And so again, if you're in the body, you're going to be aware of the emotions. And they're more easy to see. You know, if anger comes up, you know what the mind's been up to. If you miss the thoughts, you'll recognize them as some type of negative emotion. It doesn't need to be profound. It could be something like stress or worry or just a general sense of unease.
So is anger still coming up sometimes?
No.
No
you can
emotions.
be free of this.
Because we have had so many non-duality people here, that's how they call themselves. And they would say, yeah, anger is coming up and this is coming up, but there isn't anybody there who is doing something with it. So what you say is that that all was
Well, this
running.
awakening occurred 23 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a very
So
long
it's
time.
a long time. Wow.
And when I speak of integration and the natural transmutation
Yes.
or transformation, if you will, of
Yeah.
the life story, there's no, even there, you can't jump in and say, well, now I'm going to go through integration. There you set yourself back in the trap. But I can only share with what I found to be
Sure.
true. And
So your personality never comes up anymore.
Sure.
I'm just curious how
Well, let's find out first. What do you mean by personality?
well, I would say the personality is the programmed self, which also the inhabits the ego structure.
And you use those conditioned patterns in order to what?
Well, it's not that I use them. It's like they are a driving force in life.
So you're aware of these conditioned patterns.
Yes.
Okay, so actually you are already beyond them. You're watching them operate. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's sort of like a tail of a comet.
Yes. So
It passes on its own accord.
yeah.
And they're harmless unless you identify with them. But before you identify with them, meaning the conditioned patterns, what was prior to that was that you identified with I, that is the body,
Right.
the initial separation.
Yes.
And with that I, you can imagine all of the conditioned patterns throughout a lifetime that we have learned in order to get what we want, in order to escape what we don't like. The ego is very manipulative. It wants to be in control, and it thinks it can get it. And the funniest thing is that it isn't. It isn't even there. If you search for it, it's not there. So watching these conditioned patterns that we're calling at this moment personality, you can already see that you're beyond it. Or you wouldn't be aware of it.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you're aware of the personality and how it operates, whether it's a happy self or an unhappy self, or what it's after, or what it wants, the second you're aware of it, you can clearly see that you're beyond it. And that's what I see with people who are awakening. It's just a matter of looking from an ever deeper level of who you are. And once no reference points remain, I suppose we could call that self-realization. Actually, I would save self-realization for the full embodiment. Again, I'm not speaking of the individual body here, though. It doesn't exclude the individual body. It's the appearance of the universe, formlessness that is appearing as consciousness as all form. The rotating planets. I mean, what kind of intelligence is this? Really? Or that's processing all these functions within our bodies right now. And we can ignore it. The tides and the changing seasons.
I'm getting more and more pulled into the silence. When I was watching when I did the research, I was watching some of the clips on YouTube, and I already then felt this incredible silence emanating from you. And I
That's
just,
because it's within you, is the truth.
yes, it's
I
just,
mean, if I had a hand mirror.
I just want to sit here and be quiet. And I can see in this moment how who speaks is silent. Or silence speaks. Yeah, there isn't anybody there.
And the reason you can recognize that is that you are this.
Yeah.
And then we can get together as friends or sit on a couch and discuss whatever. And it is always here, deeply here.
It's another thing I feel in your presence is my heart.
Yes.
And I know in your book you mentioned a lot the heart and consciousness being the heart and
As soon as we say one word, we've made this, we've made it into an object that isn't real, just something that we essentially are. You know, we live in this, a virtual paradise, if you will,
right.
a secret garden of stillness that is within and appearing to be without, outside. And without that body reference point anymore, you know, there's just this. But it's going so unnoticed. And there's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that says, what would you do if the midnight stars only came out once every 1,000 years? You know, would you ignore it, or would you watch TV? And this is what I'm asking people. What you have heard the news here today. What will you do? You got the doer there. You stop. Allow this to arise, this timeless heart that makes all things possible. It makes perception possible. At a not so deep level, you see it as perceiving something else, some object. But it's that which makes perception possible, makes cognition possible, and yet it itself is free.
It's beautiful. And yet it is important that we share ourselves. Sometimes we share our stories. It is important that people can reflect and see that there's something else, and maybe they had an experience and they, like you, they don't know what to do with it, or don't know where it was coming from, or what was happening. So I think it is important sometimes also to talk about the story. And I remember when I used to be able to leave my body and astral travel, and I was doing amazing things, and used it also to heal people. I could go into other people's bodies, and when I shared that sometimes in my groups, people would come up and were so grateful and said, I have this experience, and I thought I was going crazy, and I went to my doctor and he tried to give me pills. So.
And as helpful as being together with people, it's not, this realization isn't dependent upon anything.
Yes.
The only answer I could give conceptual answers all day long, and unless those people
Yeah.
that you were meeting with, unless they looked within
Yes.
to find out for themselves, and it becomes more knowledge in a basket that we're actually trying to empty.
Empty. Yeah, I understand that. But at the same time, Katie, um, people's mind relax.
Yes.
And this relaxation gives an opening. And sometimes, we have, it's good to talk about certain things, and it's all concepts, but it can be used as a tool.
Yes, but there's no
To
sense of
get-
self there.
Yeah,
So that's the joy of being human, I guess we could say.
yeah,
One love. You could get together and read poetry or enjoy a walk in nature or talk about spiritual experiences.
yeah.
The deeper question is, who is that is experiencing? Who is living here? Who is
Yeah.
being?
Those are the fundamental
You know,
questions.
is it my
Yeah.
being versus your being? The opportunity of people sharing together in groups is just the love that can surface in the silence and the stillness. It's very supportive. A group atmosphere is very supportive of that.
Yes, yeah.
But, I don't know if you've ever just gone into the forest and sat with a tree, have satsang.
Yeah, I loved it.
They don't talk back, it's, it's not an alone truth. It's not meant to be hibernating in the cave that I was speaking of earlier,
Yeah,
alone. I mean, that's an essential part of the path, is
Yes.
having time alone. But ultimately, it's all of us recognizing that we're free enough
yeah.
and perfect.
So I just something came up. When we spoke earlier, before the program started, you said the witness left, and there was what was only left was consciousness, and your personality, and it was all only consciousness. Does that mean? And I experienced that once. It's not where I live, where it is beyond the mind, and you are just experience. You just flow. There's no thinking. There is just a constant creation from one moment to the next.
I mean, you're just relating such a deep level of surrender, and it's
Yeah.
so beautiful, flowing with life instead of having an idea. I mean, we're truly present, being it, allowing it to dance through us.
And you think the only thing we have to do is just to be quiet, to go beyond the mind.
The ego often misunderstands this. I was speaking with a woman. She said, "But I have a very busy life.
Yeah.
I can't just be sitting and
Yes.
being still." The stillness is who you are, and it's whether you're waiting in a post office line or preparing your dinner or every morning, taking your shower. It's who you are. You're not looking at the level from the mind. That it's all here, all deeply integrated.
So it's connecting with, and I can feel it now, the silence. And there's no form, it's just silence.
Right. In relationship to consciousness, I'm pure awareness. In relationship to the universe, let's say, I'm pure beingness. But this isn't really a relationship land. You know, there is only this. And I don't mean that in some existential type of way. You know, the existentialists may have been coming quite close. That there's just nothing. But you see, that's the mind calling it nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can investigate that nothingness, that apparent formlessness. You see, you're still looking there from a point of reference. When that point of reference goes, then there's just essence that is form and form that is essence.
Mm-hmm.
Just a beautiful dance. To go shopping.
I just feel blank in the moment. That's all there is.
This is the truth.
Would be all so easy.
Oh, so easy. It's not to say that you're not going to work hard. In fact, because you're flowing, as you described,
Yes.
so spontaneously, there's not all that consternation of the mind, what needs to happen next. I mean, we still may set goals, make the list of to-do, but that list to do is moving toward the future, and you don't know what's going to show up. You may miss your connecting flight. Your daughter may be in a car accident, and it's being wherever you are, fully and completely. And it is so much easier to be in acceptance and surrender than fighting it. What are you going to do if you don't want to miss your flight and you've missed the airplane?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's silly to say, well, this shouldn't have happened.
I know. I know.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, so you flow with that, and you'll find that it's constantly pointing. I mean, we could live by our conditioned intelligence that comes from the separated, divided mind.
Yes.
Or we could be this universal intelligence, as I said earlier, that's capable of, the planets are rotating.
Yeah.
We do nothing. The tides are changing. Could it be that this little teeny life situation is actually happening by itself in this divine perfection?
Yeah.
Instead of the ego pretending to control everything.
Mm.
And that's the simplicity of
So
being.
It's really having the courage to stay with the not knowing and the mystery of the not knowing.
Well, if we were honest and took a look, if we knew what was going to happen 30 seconds from now, or 5 seconds from now, we would have to say that we do not know.
Yeah. Okay, Katie, we have to finish. I just want to show your book again. Katie wrote this book, Awake Joy, the Essence of Enlightenment. And thank you for watching Conscious TV. Goodbye.